Elephant in the Room, of course, is Bride of the Monster. It's featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000, which is a show that, Kevin, I believe you are a big fan of.
Yeah, I've been watching that since I was 9 years old. I remember my brother was curious about what it was, so we found the movie in Blockbuster, the movie where they riffed this island Earth. We brought it home. Occasionally, if we rented movies from
Mm-hmm.
Blockbuster, my parents and I, they'd set up TV tables in front of the TV and we watched a movie while we ate. And I'll always remember it because I was laughing so hard and so consistently that I could not eat because I was kept
Interesting.
laughing. And we ended up watching it about 9 times over a 5-day rental period.
Oh, wow.
I've been a big fan ever since then. And actually, revisiting Bride of the Monster, I thought about just watching it raw, but I'm like, no, I'll go back to the Mystery Science Theater episode.
Yeah, I believe this was the first time I saw it without the Mystery Science Theater, and then out of curiosity, I watched it with the Mystery Science Theater as well. I was a big Mystery Science Theater fan for a while. I believe you probably don't even know this, but I think you kind of got me into it, but because I think I had vaguely heard about it, but you were always posting about it on Facebook. Your Facebook name was Tom Servo,
Yeah,
right?
for a
Wasn't
long
that, am
time.
I imagining that?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
That's right.
I,
And I didn't know what that was, but then I checked it out, and kind of the summer between high school and undergrad for me is when I really got into it. And looking back, it's kind of a interest that is sort of largely lost for me. I mean, I will still enjoy a really good episode, but I don't think just throw on a random episode, I'm not going to be laughing my ass off. I've kind of grown away from that, I guess, at least. And I'm definitely a Mike guy at the Joel episodes, which is Bride of the Monster is a Joel episode. Don't quite do it for me as much. That having been said, I still have a fondness for the show.
yeah, for me, I don't laugh out loud the same way I used to unless I really tune in and really pay attention to
Right.
it. And
Oh yeah,
and
for
I'm in
me,
a mood
if
to
I throw
laugh.
these on, it's at the middle of night, going to bed, and it's just on in the background.
Same.
Yeah.
And for me, it's because of that level of fondness. Like I could turn on any episode and it just feels a little bit like a warm hug.
Oh,
They
sure,
did the
sure.
revival for Netflix, and it doesn't have the same feel as it is because it's so much like a higher budget. It's
The
done by a
comic
bunch of
timing was just so different.
yeah, it's completely different, but also
That was the biggest thing for me.
digging into it for me, I was thinking about why it's not working on the same level, and for me it came down to, I don't know, but maybe it's just me, but they're LA comics. They're West Coast LA comedians writing all these jokes as opposed to a bunch of guys in Minnesota who are doing nothing else with their lives other than just watching these bad movies and writing jokes
Yeah.
day in and day out.
Uh-huh.
They really had the time to just craft this into a finely tuned machine. Whereas when you're in LA, you gotta hustle. You gotta try and become the biggest comedian the world's ever seen, But these guys, they didn't care about that. They just liked being around each other and telling jokes.
Yeah, there's some kind of simplicity in how the original show was.
Yeah.
And I agree, that you kind of have to watch the two to understand what you're talking about, but I think I do understand.
Yeah.
Someone listening to us might have no idea what we're talking about.
I've
but I
I've
agree.
never been to
The feel's
Minnesota,
different.
but I can guarantee you that that there's something about the place there that fix the sense of humor into a very particular kind of thing
Okay.
that
Well,
really appealed to me.
I'll extend Wisconsin into there, my home state, of course, because Mike Nelson, I believe, a graduate of University of Wisconsin Stout. At least he's wearing a UW Stout sweatshirt
Oh,
in
yeah.
the movie, I know. And
Yeah.
we used to UW Stout is, or at least this was back in the day. I don't know if this is still true, but kind of notoriously is considered the worst university of the University of Wisconsin system. We used to have a saying, when in doubt, go to Stout. Or stout, the easy way out. And I think it's neat that Mike Nelson went there. I love it.
That's hilarious. Honestly, that explains a lot of Mike Nelson. But yeah, I actually,
Maybe.
because I do go to Mystery Science Theater for that warm hug feeling, a lot of the times the Joel episodes are a go-to for me. Not because I'm a Joel guy necessarily, but because they're almost more low-key and just have a sort of charm, an easy charm about them, whereas the Mike episodes are a lot more sarcastic, a lot more
Yes.
fast.
I think it comes down for me even even the movie choice. Like under Mike, they were doing more like 80s, 90s, like really low budget stuff. Joel was like more the 50s stuff, which I like those movies. But to me, I want to see Werewolf with all these people who have no idea how to do an American accent, you know, like stuff like that, like the types of movies, or where they're making fun of Joe Estevez, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is stuff I really, that's probably some of my favorite stuff on the show.
I think that's actually the main difference between both of us, because I know you're a Charles Band fan. You go on Full Moon Direct, but I am like,
I don't like admitting that publicly, but yeah.
But I think I go a couple decades behind you, you know? I'm like the Something Weird catalog and the stuff that Vinegar Syndrome puts out. Ed Wood
Well, you
films.
enjoy Herschel Gordon Lewis films.
I do, yeah. I
tend not to. I've seen one or two that I think are kind of neat, but yeah.
I've seen almost all of the Blood series that he's done, and a couple of his
I didn't know there was this Blood series.
A couple of his non-gore films, I think. I don't know. I've seen, at the very least, I've seen lots of clips from them, if not the entire film. But yeah, then I went on Letterboxd and saw your reviews, and I'm like, well, that's kind of harsh.
Oh yeah, you strongly disagreed with my 10,000 or 2,000 Maniacs. How many Maniacs are there?
2,000 Maniacs. 10,000 Maniacs is
2,000. I couldn't remember how many there were.
But yeah, 2,000 Maniacs, I thought it really surprised me how much I genuinely like enjoyed it on a story level and entertainment level. I thought that the gore scenes were actually clever as opposed to Blood Feast and most of his other films.
I will say I enjoyed 2,000 Maniacs more than the remake. There is a remake of that.
God.
Robert Englund's in it. It's terrible. Eli Roth cameos in it for some reason. It's the rare film that would actually benefit from Eli Roth's direction. I think it's one of those rare films.
Any movie that's like a really schlocky exploitation movie that's being remade has to have an Eli Roth cameo in it. It's just...
Yeah, it seems to be written in stone somewhere.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't even think that the producers reach out to him. I think he just smells something happening.
He just lives on sets, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think, yeah, that makes total sense that you would be more into like the later Mike episodes, because the movie choices there are definitely like a lot of 80s and 90s schlock, which I enjoy too, but just in terms of feeling the history behind the movies, I like to go back to the little bit older. But that's personal.
Yeah,
taste.
I think I like the older stuff. I like old 60s and 70s stuff, but I like the kind of B movies that they couldn't do on that show. I like a Three on a Meat Hook, you know, William Girdler type exploitation movie. Like the stuff that's a few notches below like Tobe Hooper's work. Like that stuff. I guess that's what Herschel Gordon Lewis is, but I just not really a fan of those movies.
Doesn't click with you.
He's very much in line with those.
I completely agree that I get a big kick out of watching those movies in general. But just the whole era fascinates me, you know. I think it's because 80s and 90s almost feels a little too recent. We watched The Room today in class. The professor for the class that I'm a TA in is actually teaching The Room as part of a curriculum on film form, you know, try to understand how a movie is constructed. So it's kind of an interesting way to go about it, because you have a bad movie that messes with film form a lot, and that's how you learn what actual film form is supposed to be. So, you know, the proof is in the pudding, you know, whether or not the kids will actually understand it by watching The Room. But watching it today, I realized, like, you know, it's basically the script level and the acting, you know, for the most part, that's the problem with that movie. If you just, like, froze a few frames from it here and there, you know, outside of some dodgy green screen, it could basically look like a real movie, or at least like a real,
or
like,
the alley set. Yeah,
like a religious movie, or something.
That's the baffling thing about The Room, is that it looks half decent. It was shot on film, and most movies of that quality do not have that budget. They don't look that good.
Yeah,